Hi, welcome back to Module 1 of the Analysis Fact-Checking Academy. This is the last section of Module 1, and in this section we're going to look at cognitive biases and the fact-checking process. So, cognitive biases can basically be described as systematic errors due to the limits of our human cognition, and a bias is, generally defined as a strong feeling in favor for or against one group of people, a particular argument, and this bias is not based on fair judgment. And these biases can really subtly affect our decisions and our judgments and can do so really without our awareness. So in the context of fact-checking, these biases can present quite significant challenges. Because fact-checking is a very manual process. There are automated fact checkers, but this is kind of like a different sort of thing to what traditional fact checkers are doing. So this manual, regular kind of version of fact checking is not particularly scalable. So it requires expertise. It's a very time-consuming process. And because of this time-consuming process, somehow unconsciously, some cognitive biases can kind of affect the outcomes of the investigation. So a classic example is confirmation bias can lead fact checkers to favor sources that sort of align with their pre-existing beliefs and kind of dismissing those that don't align with their personal beliefs. Another example of a cognitive bias in the fact-checking process is anchoring bias. And this is where you rely too much on initial information, which may actually be misleading. So there are a number of steps that you can incorporate to mitigate the effect of these biases. And it's important to sort of think about the individual biases that you might have that might affect the fact-checking process. So there are some things that you can do: ongoing training, awareness programs, educating yourself and other fact checkers about cognitive biases. This is, some steps that you can do to mitigate the effect of cognitive biases in the fact-checking process. So a lot of cognitive biases can actually be found in the fact-checking process. And academic research has identified roughly 39 cognitive biases that can be involved. And among them, the three most impactful are anchoring bias, confirmation bias, and salience bias. So anchoring bias means that an individual relies too heavily on the first piece of information they encounter. So say you are fact-checking a political statement, and a politician claims that their administration reduced unemployment by 5%. If you personally had previously encountered a report suggesting a reduction that was saying only 2%, this might unconsciously give more credibility to sources or data that align with the 2% figure rather than the more comprehensive or larger number of 5%. So in this case, the initial 2% figure acts as the anchor, potentially leading the fact checker to undervalue or dismiss stronger evidence in favor of a more accurate statement. So really being aware of anchoring bias, this means that you need to question your initial impressions and really seek out as much information as possible. Confirmation bias really is the tendency to search for, interpret, or remember information that confirms one pre-existing beliefs. And this can kind of play in with anchoring bias because maybe there's a politician who says 5%, but on a personal level, you don't really like the politician. This anchoring and confirmation bias can kind of work hand in hand and actually lead you down a path that you don't want to go. And that might lead to things where in confirmation bias, you unconsciously favor sources that align with your own viewpoints. So to manage this, you should really be striving to examine evidence from multiple perspectives and really be open to information that can contradict your initial assumptions. The last one is salience bias, and this leads to individuals to focus on items that are more prominent or more emotionally striking, and this can be at the expense of less remarkable things, but equally important information or claims. So in the fact-checking process, this can cause fact-checkers to give undue weight to sensational or emotionally charged claims. So by being aware of salience bias means you need to recognize the need to evaluate all information regardless of its emotional impact. So to manage some of these biases, you can integrate a few countermeasures into your work. So you can integrate things like discussion, evidence, randomizing, revision, time, instructions, and further training. So with discussion, this is important because you can encourage discussions with your other colleagues, with your co-workers, and you can encourage these discussions between assessors because by discussing in real time, you can challenge each other's viewpoints, even identify potential biases, and hopefully reach a more balanced conclusion. On evidence, supporting evidence is really important for making your accurate judgments. So you should always be looking for strong, reliable evidence before making any determinations. So this really ensures that your decisions are based on facts rather than personal assumptions, personal biases, personal beliefs. Randomizing is actually something that you can integrate. So you use different assessors to evaluate different pieces of information. So you can kind of randomize assignments to ensure that no single assessor is consistently looking at the same kind of thing, or no single assessor's potential bias consistently influences the outcomes. And this is also a discussion that you should be having when you're doing the claim selection process. So maybe you pick a claim, and then you can come to your co-workers and say, I think this is a claim that can be investigated. What do you think? And then you can have a discussion with your colleagues if they also think it should be investigated. Revision, this is really about, double checking, ensuring that your answers have been proved by ensuring that, someone else in your team has gone through the fact check and comes to the same conclusion as you. And so this can both important in terms of mitigating the effects of bias, but just ensuring that you have more accurate results in case that something has been missed. On time, this can be quite difficult if there is a particular deadline, if there's some kind of pressure, but if there is the opportunity, it's really important to provide fact checkers and assessors with an adequate amount of time to complete their evaluation, because when we rush and we don't have time, we're more likely to be influenced by our cognitive biases. So allowing sufficient time can really make sure that the effect of these biases are mitigated. On instructions, this is really about creating guidelines, documentation, real strong kind of plans on how claims should be assessed, on how to construct the fact check, on how to sort of show the information to the audience. By having these well-defined instructions, you can really help standardize the evaluation process, which both reduces the effect of biases affecting the outcome, but also gives a good template for your colleagues and for yourself on how to actually execute the fact check. Lastly, it's really important to focus on ongoing training, and there are training opportunities from many fact-checking organizations around the world, like Edmo, for example. So you should be looking at new opportunities to learn skills, new opportunities to learn tools, but also new opportunities to understand on how to recognize and mitigate cognitive biases. So by staying informed about how cognitive biases can affect the fact-checking process, you'll be more informed about your work. Okay, so that's the end of the first module, Module 1 on fact-checking. This is quite like a theoretical module just to give you sort of the foundations of fact-checking. In each subsequent module over the next 6 weeks, you're going to get into some more practical skills, geolocation, for example, and sort of get into sort of the more meat and bones of it all. So in this module, we looked at what fact-checking is, why it's a distinct practice, what the terms misinformation, disinformation, and fake news mean. We looked at things like methodology, case selection, claim evaluation, pre-bunking, debunking, and we looked a bit at ethics as well as cognitive biases and how they affect the fact-checking process. Thank you for joining me in the first module of the Analysis Fact-Checking Academy, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye.